And welcome back, fellow adventurers, to Let's Play the Stanley Parable. And I think we have a few more endings to cover here before I wrap this Let's Play up. And this next one I want to try over in this direction. This is, of course, the follow directions way. But there is going to be a twist
Yet
here.
there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Notice the broom closet is still available, I think. Yeah. Shall we go in again?
Oh no, no, not again. I won't be part of this. I'm not going to encourage you. I'm not going to say anything at all. I'm just going to be patient and wait for you to finish whatever it is you enjoy doing so much in this room. Please take your time.
There's one more beat on that joke that we might...
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
And instead, we're actually going to walk downstairs.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. "I'm dreaming!" he yelled. "This is all a dream." Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay. Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Alright, so that is what I call the self-realization ending. I think officially it's called the insane ending for pretty obvious reasons. But yeah, it's, you know, what would happen if a video game character kind of realized that they were a video game character and had absolutely no free will whatsoever. One possibility is they would go completely insane. So a rather, again, another tragic ending compared to some of the others. And actually, since I'm already just kind of hanging out here, I can also do a different ending just by staying in here, actually. I think I just need to wait here for a minute or so.
But Stanley simply couldn't handle the pressure. What if he had to make a decision? What if a crucial outcome fell under his responsibility? He had never been trained for that. No. This couldn't go any way except badly. The thing to do now, Stanley thought to himself, is to wait. Nothing will hurt me. Nothing will break me. In here I can be happy forever. I will be happy. Stanley waited. Hours passed, then days. Had years gone by? He no longer had the ability to tell. But the one thing he knew for sure, beyond any doubt, was that if he waited long enough, the answers would come. Eventually, someday, they would arrive. Soon, very soon now, this will end. He will be spoken to. He will be told what to do. Now it's just a little bit closer. Now it's even closer. Here it comes.
So that's the coward ending. What happens if you either wait in there for too long or you close the door with yourself inside.
Someone was following Stanley. He was sure of it.
What?
If he checked over his shoulder now, he would surely catch them. It was only a matter of time.
Well, that's an eerie thought. And actually, that ending was the very first one I ever got because, as you might expect, being a typical adventure gamer, since that was the first room, I was spending a lot of time clicking around trying to see if I could interact with anything. And while I was doing that, the door just closed and I got that ending that Stanley never made it out of his office. So, that's pretty typical of me, I think. Alright, we're going to shoot for one of the endings I was trying last time.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Which is where we have to do the trick with the boss's office door.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there. Oh no, no, not again. I won't be part of this. I'm not going to encourage you. I'm not going to say anything at all. I'm just going to be patient and wait for you to finish whatever it is you enjoy doing so much in this room. Please take your time.
That was actually a little surprising. Normally after you get that that message, then the next time you come by here, the broom closet is completely sealed off with boards. So, I don't know, maybe that was just a glitch that it actually hasn't happened yet. Alright, let's go upstairs.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Alright, let's see if I can time this now.
Stepping into his man.
Got it. So the idea is that the narrator has continued on with the story, not realizing that we're not there anymore. At least that's how I interpret it. Because from now on, we will not get any narration whatsoever. However, doing this does unlock some of these doors, I think. Let's see, does it unlock this door? No? Doesn't unlock that door. Oh, okay. I must be thinking about a different trick then. There is a way that you can unlock some of these doors and see what's inside. However, there's nothing particularly interesting in them, although I think there might be a couple visual Easter eggs, but nothing that I particularly recall kind of stood out. But we should be able to completely backtrack here now. And right next to our office should be a door that is newly accessible. Ah, wait, here it is, here it is. Right here? In the Great Void. You are now leaving. And of course, we're not so lucky as to have the elevator working. Escape Pod Bay, floor 760. And we're on 754, so sounds like we have to go up 6 flights of stairs. Thank goodness they didn't start us from 0. Or 1, or something like that. Or actually, given our office number, you might think that we started off on the 4th floor. Because these developers could and would do something like that if they wanted to. As we saw with the baby game, where in order to get the ending for that, you have to literally play the game for 4 hours. Or at least set up a macro to do it. Which I am pretty sure that almost every player actually did that instead of actually playing it for 4 hours, because I think that would drive everybody nuts. None of the doors up the ascent here are accessible. But when we do get to floor 760, which we're now on, and you notice that the rooms are still labeled as 400 something. So that's a little surreal. Escape pod launch bay. Aha. So that's the what's
All
called...
of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
That's called the launch pad ending, or launch bay ending. Unless it's just a simple statement of the fact that, you know, without the narrator, there's not much to do, so you might as well just get out of the game. I'm not sure how to interpret that ending compared to all the others. All the others seem to make a little bit of sense to me. It's either a commentary on Stanley as a video game character or just on a certain genre of video game and how choice is related to it. But that one was a little bit more tricky for me. Okay, so let's see. I think there's only 2 more major endings that I'd like to show you. There's a couple other what you might call endings, but I tend to refer to them more as Easter eggs because they're not quite. They're super duper quick, and
when Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
They're super duper quick, and they don't really needed to have much interpretation as far as I could see. There's an ending where, for example, you go around finding all the consoles to push buttons, and you end up in a big room full of buttons that you can just push until you're tired of it. That kind of stuff. There's a quick ending if you try to open up the console and try to enter cheat codes, called going to the serious room. But I think I'll leave those up to you guys if you want to really get a completionist look at the entire game, or of course you can look those endings up. But as far as the endings that I want to comment on, there's basically just 2 more. So the first one actually is, once again, we're going to go to the left. Let's see if the broom closet's boarded up.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
There we go. So I guess you need to do it. Try to enter the broom closet 3 times, and then the 4th time, this is what it looks like. That gave me a really good chuckle when I saw that the first time.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Open the bathroom now? No? Oh, there we go. Here we go. Yeah, here's some of the little Easter eggs. Money in the morning, money in the evening, money for breakfast. Money crisp. Can we guess what the obsession of the boss is? That reminds me a little bit of the jingle of pizza in the morning, pizza in the evening, pizza at supper time. If any of you know what that jingle is from, then congratulations, you're about the same age I am. Ah, and now this one's open. Maybe I just had to, maybe the launch pad ending needs to be done first. Maybe that's what I was forgetting. Yay! Elevator time. And I think this may be the only time in the game where you actually use a standard elevator like this. Lovely music. You can just lightly hear the narrator doing a little improv. And of course, the elevator goes nowhere. And of course, you'll also see that the boss is literally faceless. He is the head of a faceless corporation. Alright, let's head in.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered. Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy, so he relaxed for a few moments with some calming New Age music.
That's why I do that really fast punch the code in, just so I can hear a little relaxing music each time.
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway. Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
And, of course, I've been teasing you guys with this left route for quite a while, so now we're actually going to take it. Apparently, this is supposed to be the escape route.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death. The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
I have a feeling the narrator does not want us to go this way.
At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Well, that's not ominous at all, is it? But here we go.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. So he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
And yet we're not dead. Instead, we're led to a room with the Stanley Parable
And
written
yet
on
it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish? When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
So we now have a narrator commenting on the narrator who's commenting on what Stanley is doing. It's like a new level of meta going on here. This is called the museum ending, hopefully for obvious reasons. And it's also kind of the behind the scenes part of the game. This is just nature paintings. Well, that seems pretty clear. But actually, as we go along through the rooms here, it has little exhibits and everything that's basically just statements from the developers about the game. So here we have the basic office layout just before you make your final choice. So this is Stanley's office here. Office layout. This blueprint shows the office from the beginning of the game. The path from Stanley's office to the 2 doors was the first part of the game that was built. Sections have been added and altered throughout development, though the core layout remains almost identical to the first iteration. So we always go along this path and come up to this point, and there are the 2 doors, which are like the basis or the foundation of all of these games. All of this game's statements on what choice is. Corridor. The pacing of this opening section was important to get right. This corridor has been moved and altered to make sure that the player reaches the 2 doors in a good time. The 2 doors. The set of 2 open doors was the very first concrete piece of the Stanley Parable's design. Once this room was created, the rest of the game emerged as an extension of it, an exploration of the contradiction this room posed. Yep, those are filing cabinets. Office computers. Of course, one of them must be playing solitaire, so that's pretty clear. Even at the high resolution, I just can't quite see what's on that one. And I just turned it off, so that's it for me. Although this one is an employee database. We have various office doors. And per their original design, they do not open. Button sounds. A selection of the sounds used throughout the game when buttons are pressed. Each sound is a mix of a keyboard stroke and a synthesized tone. Ta-da! Here are the basic credits. So, credit where credit is due. Although we will be seeing these again at the very, very end of the game. But just special kudos to the impeccable Kevin Brightening for really giving me a large amount of good laughs as the narrator. Maintenance room. An early version of the maintenance room. This is the part that we entered in just before the adventure line scenario. Got a copier there. The point of the Stanley Parable high definition remix is to win. Somehow I doubt that. Especially since the one next to it says the point is to lose. Greenlight. In September 2012, we submitted the Stanley Parable to Greenlight, Valve's process of approving games for Steam. The Greenlight page had only a series of cryptic photos, which were still enough to win the community's approval. Ooh, these are some interesting pictures. War Zone. Early in development, we designed an ending where Stanley would end up on a battlefield fighting aliens. The action game would become sentient and would wage war against the narrator. We realized shortly after starting to build it that it was far too jokey and on the nose for the tone of the game. Plus, some people interpreted it as making fun of people who like shooters, which was not our intention. Although I still think that would have been a cool environment to suddenly find yourself in compared to the sterile office one. So, still kind of a shame that they weren't able to do something with that. Boy, how many junk emails like that do we see sometimes? Brilliantly thought up. Narrator emails. After the second trailer we sent out, we asked people to email the narrator for questions. While we had initially planned to use these in further promotional materials, we never found the perfect use for them. Here are a selection of those emails. So, actual emails from people who've played the game. The Lounge, an early version of the Lounge, aka the place that is just the most awesome room in the world, as far as Stanley is concerned.